it's not a USP anymore to say that you're a cloud firm, right? There are lots of cloud firms out there who do this well. That's a common one that I see quite a bit is, here you go, get on with it. We expect you to deliver a full chargeable portfolio, and we also aren't really going to back you either, like in terms of just emotionally within the firm. You know, we're just going to kind of let you get on with it. We wanted a tech stack, but we ended up with a tech splat because we just ended up with 40 bits of software because we just kept going, oh, that sounds good, we'll have a chat about that. We'll probably get there eventually, but it will take a lot longer than if, you know, the rest of the business kind of knows that this is something that is going to be happening by hook or by crook. It's always about systems and about people before it's about tech.
Tony Stevenson is a Digital Enablement Manager at FreeAgent. He's also a chartered accountant, ex-Xero, ex-Deloitte, ex-Spotlight, and he's got a wealth of information about what it takes to make digital transformation work in an accountancy practice. That's why I was so excited to catch up with him and ask him things like, what does he see firms doing wrong? What makes a great cloud champion? And how's the world changed since he was enabling practice back at Xero 5 or 10 years ago? There's loads and loads of information, loads of value in this, so I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it.
Posted something really interesting the other day saying that you're quite a bad accountant because the skills that you lean on now and that you would use if you were kind of driving projects and driving innovation are very different to the ones that you need in practice. Do you think there's a real disconnect there? Do you think it's possible to be a good accountant and a good cloud champion at the same time?
I definitely think it is possible to be both. But I think that you always run the risk of, if you're sort of trying to be both, being neither. You know, if you've got a smaller firm, then by definition there's going to be less moving parts, less people to persuade of change, and of less people to kind of go off piste on the project. So it's probably less important for you to be fully focused on it if you are, the driver of digital change within your firm. Often I think that certainly in the bigger firms where there is the possibility of having a fully dedicated resource, I always think it's a bit of a mistake not to do that. People are very good at filling their time, and they're if you give them one objective of digital project, digitization of our practice, and you have a very limited or non-existent client portfolio, you've got nothing else to do other than that project. And people inherently don't want to sit there and then have a conversation with their boss in 3 months' time going, well, I've done absolutely nothing at all for the last 3 months. This is great, because you leave yourself feeling exposed. But we found it tricky, at Xero, trying to hire accountants out of the profession into implementation, because some of the skills that are required are a good crossover, but often we would come up against resistance when the idea of, well, you might have to travel around to some of the different offices, you might have to stand up and present to people, you might have to take people disagreeing with you about things and being able to persuade them that this is why we need to do what we're planning to do. So yeah, there's definitely some crossover, but I think the more successful and speedier projects that move along tend to have a dedicated resource that is outside of standard chargeable work.
What are the other big mistakes that you see firms making? Like you mentioned, you've worked with thousands of firms on their sort of implementation on that digital journey. Like, there must be some common themes in there. What are you seeing people get wrong 9 times out of 10?
If you're an owner of a firm, right, so you're a partner, and you've decided that digitization is the way to go, it's not like, oh, we need a new website and we'll just engage somebody to do it and I'll pay them some money and they'll go and do it and then that'll be it. It doesn't work like that. It is a far more fundamental shift to the way that you do everything. And a common thing that I see is, I want this change, but I don't really want to drive this change, and I don't really want to sort of publicly back it again and again and again, and to really make sure that the person that I've delegated this to, when they stand there and talk, the firm feels like I'm on their shoulder and it's my words coming out of their mouth, if that makes sense. Because ultimately you might be asking somebody to go and deliver this. So let's say they're an assistant manager, they're keen, they're bright, they've got all the tech down, you know, they're able to talk to people and, you know, they're really behind the project. They might have to go and tell senior managers who are 20 years their senior in terms of their experience in the industry, you need to change fundamentally the way that you're doing your job. That person is probably not going to be as receptive to that message coming from somebody junior to them if they don't think that the firm and the owners of the firm back them. I probably see it more now with FreeAgent, where it's kind of, I've heard that this is something I should look at, so go and look at it, go get trained in it. What I haven't really done is gone, right, okay, so we're looking at Satago, FreeAgent, Dext, whatever it might be. And we're looking at it for this reason, because it either presents us with this opportunity or it solves this problem that we have. And, you know, and it becomes that I'm doing it because I saw it at Accountex, or, you know, like you know, like someone's told me I should do it, so I'm doing it, rather than it being because, you know, because I've actually really analyzed the kind of system that, you know, that is there underneath. And that is another one, is that, you know, if you take, for example, you know, Excel or Sage or something, and you just, you know, if we're just looking at the bookkeeping element of it, now it might be that your system works perfectly and that you're able to just pull out that part of the system that does that bit of the function and just replace it with something else, and the system will suddenly work better. And, you know, and that was the missing piece. But I think firms that really make it stick kind of really get the whole thing out and go, right, okay, so, you know, let's look at our data collection, let's look at who does that, let's look at where the decisions are made along the process. You know, who is it that's collecting the data? Is that person the same person that is making the decision about what piece of software they get put on? Are there any controls or checks in there to make sure that it's not too late before, you know, if that person absolutely loves that piece of software and we don't want our clients going on there for whatever reason it might be, you know, that the whole system doesn't get analyzed, I think is another common mistake of just sort of trying to, you know, just buy a piece of software because somebody else has said it's good and slinging it in there without really kind of looking at the whole overall picture, I think is another common one. Yeah,
it's just that whole part of just a vision missing, right? It's just, oh, we're doing this thing, we get on the bus because other people are, but we don't really know where we're going or what we're doing. And
I call it digi-washing.
Digi-washing.
Yeah. It's that somebody else said I'm doing it, so I'm doing it. So I got a banner in reception. I've subscribed to some licenses, and I haven't really done much else other than just buy the software and just hope that will solve the problem. And, you know, and it's always about systems and about people before it's about tech, I think.
I think people really underestimate how important a vision is there. Like, you kind of listen to podcasts with leaders or leadership kind of content, and it's always like, well, the main job of a leader is to communicate your vision and get other people bought into it. And without that, you're sort of adrift, aren't you, a little bit? And that is sort of missing in so many of these sorts of projects. But when you think about, rather than giving the kind of leaders a hard time, we should kind of give them some
yeah, we have given them a bit of a roast, and I'm sorry.
no, it's all good, because that's where the responsibility lies, right, ultimately. But say you're in practice now, right, and you're running a practice, what are the qualities you would look for in a really great cloud champion?
So I would look for somebody who, like, if I walk past the back of their chair and I overlook their shoulder, they're looking at some new piece of tech every now and again, and I see it and I can feel that they're bought into what we're trying to do, as well as it not just being like, oh, here you go, you can crack on with this. Resilience, I mean, as everything comes back to that, but you've got to be somebody that is going to understand that, you know, the first time that we go at this, we might get 20% buy-in, and then the next time we go at this, we might get another 10%, and, you know, we'll chip away at it until we got critical mass, and, you know, and you'll start to understand that, you know, it's not just a one-hit thing. This is something that's, ongoing, and we're even when we get there, we're still then going to be evolving in a different way, right? So resilience, communication skills are key, and empathy to understand that not everyone's going to feel comfortable with this, not everyone's going to feel like this is really where they want to go, and that's not to be overlooked, because you have to understand you're asking people to fundamentally potentially change the way that they've always done things, and none of us like change that isn't communicated in the right way, with no empathy, with no plan, and with no support, right? So you need people who are supportive, you need people who can communicate well, and I think fundamentally you need people who kind of understand the tech well, and can answer questions and become that sort of focal point within the firm, where that if you've got a question about FreeAgent or Satago or whatever it might be, that's the person who's going to come to it, because they've been able to understand the tech, and how it works, and and how you implement it properly. And I think as well, somebody that can kind of foster accountability as well. I think it's often, we try to put these things in, and then what it's like. We'll have a conversation again in 6 months' time with the cloud champ about how's it going, and sometimes it's like, yeah, it's great, this person's bought in, and this person's now starting to get on board, got a few clients going, but often it'll be like, I don't know, or nothing's moved because we didn't necessarily put a system in place to check, and if we don't have accountability on it, then it's much easier for things to drift, and you can understand it, right? So I was someone in practice, that's not true, I was someone in life who, I'm not an early adopter. I am like the third wave. So like, someone will have adopted it and it'll probably be bad, and I don't want to kind of get too involved in that bit of it, because like that's ugly, and there's lots of nastiness going on there, and experimentation. The second person's kind of come in and probably kind of learned from that person. That's the person who I want to learn from, is the person who learned from the first person, and now because it's come back round, and I've heard it come back round twice, now I'll get on board with it. Like, occasionally I'll jump onto things when they first come round, but I understand, I empathize, because how many times have you sat there in practice and I'll be like, we're using this new piece of kit, and I'll be like, I don't think that's going to catch. And then it will disappear, and then it will come back again, and you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe it is going to catch, and then it will disappear, and it might not come back again. You think, oh, glad I didn't waste my time on those two, early rounds. And I am like that. I know I am like that. So I preach to people to do things that I don't do myself, which is a bit hypocritical, but you have to be able to understand where people are coming from, and and to be able to kind of go, right, okay, so what are the barriers to you succeeding, and why is it that you're resistant to this? Because it isn't usually just because people have no appetite for wanting to do things better. It's usually because actually they're just afraid it's going to be hard, and that's not the same thing. So you have to kind of have empathy and understand that not everyone's going to be on board with this, and that's fine, and they can come on board in wave 2 or wave 3, or or whatever it might be.
So because we're getting short on time, I've got one more question for you to sort of go through, but it would be great to maybe jump on another one of these, because there's so many discussion points that we could chat all afternoon.
For hours, mate.
What I'm interested in though is how this has changed since you were at Xero. Like, what is it, the same problem, or has the problem evolved? Like, what are the differences that you see?
It's not a USP anymore to say that you're a cloud firm, right? There are lots of cloud firms out there who do this well. And I think that what kind of happened over the years was that you initially saw people kind of like nailing their colors to one mast. And then over the years, it's become a lot more of a client-led thing, right? So at FreeAgent, we consider ourselves to be the market leaders for micro entities, right? So we think, we believe, although we're a modest bunch, we believe that 0 to 10 employees, we're the best, right? Better than Xero, better than QuickBooks, better than Sage, better than, the sort of hybrid banking apps. We think we've got that bit nailed, right? I was speaking to a firm last week about this, and they said, what we initially did was we started with one firm, with one, cloud provider, and, and then we decided to basically just open the doors and let everybody choose whatever they wanted based on whatever was on the telly or what their mate Dave down the pub said was good, or whatever it might be, that guy, right? And then we realized that actually suddenly we spread ourselves way too thin, and actually we had 10 or 12 vendors that, we were having to kind of keep on top of, do training for, catch up the account manager over. So then we realized that actually what we really needed to do was get quite firm about where we felt we had maybe 2 or 3 options that suited the right types of clients. And it was more a case of like, look, we don't just work with one vendor. And there are firms out there that are very clear about their type of client and only need one vendor. And I'm not criticizing those guys at all. I'm not saying this is the approach for everyone, but if you are a generalist with small to medium sized clients, you could probably have 2 or 3 in there and, and sort of be fine. So that's definitely one thing that has changed. And the successful firms I see are the ones that have, made decisions on that is probably the key thing, and said, this is what we do, not just say come all, and we're going to look after everything that comes to us. The second thing, which I guess kind of leads on from this, is just the sheer volume of apps in the marketplace now, that the app overwhelm, if you call it, 1,000 on the Xero marketplace. We're at FreeAgent, we're sort of moving down this road, but a lot of firms I speak to are just like, we just don't really know how to sift through what we need. We don't really know how to build a tech stack, or what one is maybe. Somebody hit me with the phrase Tech Splat the other day, which I quite like. So it's like, we wanted a tech stack, but we ended up with a tech splat because we just ended up with 40 bits of software because we just kept going, that sounds good, we'll have a chat about that, bought a couple of licenses, and suddenly you end up in a situation where it was a podcast I was listening to, and I was saying, it might be that, but then all the apps change as well, don't they? So it might have been that you had Float for cash flow forecasting, and then you had, like Futurely for, for your management accounts or whatever it might have been. And then over the time, you made 2 genuine subscriptions for those 2 things, and then over the time they kind of came together and actually overlap now. So you could probably lose one of them or focus on one of them and just have one of them as a sort of kind of niche area that's dealt with more mainly by the clients directly or whatever it is. So the app overwhelm thing, I think, is massive now, and and it is just a lot to choose from. So your successful approaches, I think, are, we need to just get clear on, like, what are the problems that our clients are experiencing and what are the problems that we're experiencing as a practice, because there's 2 distinct sets of apps for that. And we need to find what we feel is the best in class, taking everything into account of price and usability and free stuff they give you, because everyone has free stuff, right? And map out what we need, and then find the things to fill the gaps, not just, I've heard that's good, so I should go with that. They are 2 very distinct challenges, I think, that have kind of unearthed themselves over the course of the last couple of years, course of the last probably 5 years, I would say. There's a lot of noise. And it's difficult to wade through the noise.
Mates, super interesting, brilliant chat. We'll have to jump on and kind of carry on some of these threads. If anyone watches wants to get in touch with you or kind of follow you anywhere, where is the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn. So I have a Twitter account, but I tapped out of Twitter a long time ago. I don't even think I could log it into anymore. Get in touch. I'm always happy to have a chat with people about this kind of stuff, because I find it fascinating, and it is a small world. So
yeah, it's fascinating, and like how it rolls out over the next 10 years is going to be like super interesting to watch it all unfold and how firms tackle those challenges. But we're gonna have 10 years to waste right now, so we'll wrap up there. Tony, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate your time. It's been really, really interesting, and we'll catch up again soon.
Pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
So thanks so much again, Tony, for your time. I hope you watching found that useful. I certainly learned a few things from Tony there as well. And if you found this content useful, check out this video where I talked to Emily Deakin about what makes a great cloud champion, and I'll see you in the next video.